Your inventory is costing you money and you don't even know it. Hi, I'm Kayla Swanson and I am your host of the Profitable Salon Owner Podcast. And today I have the pleasure of hanging out with Leah Freeman. What's up, Leah? How are you?
Hi, how are you guys doing?
So excited to have you on the podcast with me today. Leah is a global ambassador of color for Lanza Healing Hair Care, and she's also been a salon owner for over 20 years, or she's celebrating 20 years come January. And I'm super excited about the topic we're going to have today because we were talking about how much your inventory, whether it's retail, your color, your supplies, how much that is costing you money and how you could be so much more profitable if you took a different approach to it. So Leah, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me kind of what you're doing, what you've been up to for the last couple of years.
So I've actually been a salon owner. We'll be celebrating 20 years in December, which I can't even believe I'm even saying that. I've been teaching on the road for close to almost 25 years. So I started out with another hair care brand, had a great run with them. I'm now going to be approaching my 10-year anniversary with Lanza here in November, which I'm very excited about. But outside of that, I own a salon. Very interesting story behind there, which I'll tell you in a second. I also got into the apparel business because to be honest, I just love fashion. So we opened up an apparel store. And
Fun.
then last but not least, recently we just invested with a few other investors owning up a med spa. So we own
Wow.
Skin and Body Med Spa and Body Bar, which is actually above our salon. And then we have an apparel store on our right side, and then we have the salon on the left side. So we're all a
Man.
good, happy family right there. So
Yeah. What a cool thing to have like different aspects. I think it kind of gives you a bigger understanding of the industry and just being able to expand yourself with all the stuff that you've been doing. I think that's amazing.
thank you.
Yeah,
I have
that's
to agree.
awesome. So tell me, so you said you had
It's
a
a
fun,
lot.
yeah, I know. And juggling different businesses, we all know how that
Yeah.
is. If you're listening to this, you have
Yeah.
multiple businesses, it's a lot to juggle more than one. One salon's one thing. Opening up more businesses is a whole nother thing. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited about today. So tell me a little bit. You said you have a fun story of how you started your salon. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So, 20 years ago, my parents and I decided to open up this venture and we had big hopes and dreams for it. We were in business for about 10 years and it was really interesting. I had a coach, Jason Everett was actually my coach back in the day. And I remember him and I having this conversation about like, what's the magic number for you? Like, what's going to make you feel like you've hit it? And I said, $1 million. And he goes, $1 million in profit? And I'm like, no, I just want to like our salon to produce $1 million. This is like, 20 years ago. And he's like, well, what's the profitability? And, it was for me, I was super ashamed to even say it, but we weren't profitable at all. Like we were sitting like knee deep, like just drowning. And a lot of people don't know that. Like on the road, I was like doing all these cool things. I was, gracing these big stages, but the reality was I wasn't making a paycheck at home.
Mm.
So about 10 years into my business, my parents put about $1.4 million into our business to keep our business open. My dad would always say it's like the charity that we just keep giving to, but we don't feel good about it. It's
Yeah.
like it just sucked. And so, my biggest wake up call was when we ended up like closing our location down completely and reopening a new location up. And I really started looking at inventory. And so I have two sides of the inventory side. I have the side for the salon owner and I have the inventory side for the stylist.
Yeah.
And one of the things we realized was we were carrying so much inventory that wasn't moving. And it was like $50,000 in inventory, $60,000 in inventory, but yet it was just taking up a bunch of space,
Yeah.
but yet we were making any money off of it. We became like a little distributor, but we weren't distributing. You know what I mean? Like I
You're
always
just
tell
hoarding
people,
at
it's
that
like,
point.
oh yeah, well, we're hoarders. I mean, that's great. I love that. We're hoarders for sure. And my biggest wake up call is when we converted over lines is I realized how much inventory we carried for so much unnecessary reason. So one of the great things that, talking to David Berglass, the owner of Lanza, he said something to me on the phone in my interview. He's like, we build product with purpose. And I really never understood it until I started using the line and really taking in what he talked about. So our company has low inventory on the back end and we have a great amount of inventory on the front end. And the front end is where you make your money, your shampoos, your conditioners, your treatments, your styling agents. It's all that color I was carrying that was actually killing us. We were drowning in all this stuff. So that's a big, big wake up call for me. So from salon owner's perspective, carrying only 100 shades versus 500 shades, which a lot of these mega companies are, which is great. But the reality is, do we really need all of that? So that was my biggest, like, I think wake up call just in general, is seeing that low inventory amount of color, but being able to create whatever I wanted with those colors.
Yeah. Totally. Wow. That's so powerful because I think one, having your own personal experience of like, yeah, like I was making no money. And when I finally identified, wow, it's because of this. Not only in that discovery were you able to find like, okay, well, what can I do about it? How can I change those things? How can I look at like, what am I actually using? What am I actually like, what is necessary to be here? And then how do you balance that? So when you started to see those changes, I know you found Lonza and they have like, you got to partner with them and have this like solve the problem together with the way that they carry their line. So how did you start to implement that? Like, what did you do with all of the stuff that you had, and how did you make those transitions? Because I know the people who are listening, they're like, oh man, that's me. Like I have all this color in my back bar that is we haven't touched in months, or we've touched very little
Just
of
sitting
it.
there.
Yeah, it's just we're
You know,
hoarders.
it's funny. It's funny because when we first took the line on, and I'm going to tell you, I think whenever you implement anything, it comes from a place of either stress or the unknown,
Yeah.
or you've made a mistake. So now I have to turn around and turn your mindset, because our mindset always is like, we need all this stuff. I need all these new shades. I need the next 6 launches, you know? And the thing was for us is when I started to actually look at, and I was telling, I was telling my husband this morning, like knowing I was going on this podcast, I've really been looking around at people and just looking at hair color, like in general. And the shade count, if you actually look at it, people always lie with the same shade. It's not like we need all this stuff. It's like, it's crazy if you think about it. So one of the things when I first came to Lonza, I told David, I was like, there's not enough color here. We need more stuff. Like, how am I going to do my job and be artistic with only 101 tubes? And he said to me, I want you to give it a year. And if you feel like we don't have the right shades, he goes, we can implement new colors if we need those. But if you give it a year and you come back and tell me, David, you were right. He's like, I just want you to know, like, he's like, I just, kind of like, if you're right, David, type of thing. So
Yeah.
not even 5 months, I was like, David, you're right.
I was like waiting for it. See, and
You're
that's
right.
so funny where you don't even realize, you don't know what you don't know until somebody gives you a different option. And
Yeah,
so if you're sitting here with the perspective of like, yeah, like you were in the same place as Leah, where you're like, how do I not do that? Like I need, I have 12 different stylists. They all style differently. And it's like, but do they? And like, if you only have a certain amount, is it what would change, or how we get more creative with those things? And I think just opening your mind to what is possible besides, because when you realize how much you are spending on inventory, and then how even much you are wasting because you are not using out so many tubes, or like go into your back bar and see like how many things have not been touched in a month, in 2 months, and whatever it looks like for you. And then start to open up, like, could there be another option for you to where you see it differently? Because just because somebody told you need 300 different tubes of color doesn't necessarily mean that is actually what you need. What do you
it's
need?
true. Yeah. I think it goes back to your closet. It's like, here's my thing about your closet. People always say you should address your closet every single month. If you haven't worn that one shirt in a few months, you either need to accessorize it so you can wear it, or you need to give it to somebody that's going to wear it.
Right.
So one of the things that we've done at our company is we have these things called concept shades. So we have our 101 tubes, and in those tubes, we have things called mixed tones. And the mixed tones are the accessories that you can add to that shirt that's in that closet forever that you never were going to wear, because you can amp it up, or you can tone it down, or you can cool it off, right? Or make
Yeah.
it look different. So what we've done is as a brand, we have given you all the things you need, and standalone, they're amazing. But if you want to intensify them or cool them down or balance them out, we give you those mixed tones to be able to do that. So I encourage all the listeners on here today, like, if anything you take back from this podcast is, I want you to look at your inventory like your closet. If you haven't worn that in a long time, like, what can you do to encourage yourself to wear it? So like what we do at our salon is we always like encourage the girls, like especially if they're doing like wefts and stuff or leftover wefts, make a color up with the mixed tones. So like maybe throw some B mix, which is blue mix, into a 6NV and see what that looks like. Throw it on a weft. It could be an option for a guest down the road that maybe wants like a mushroom brown type of color that we would have never thought about until we did that. So I challenge my girls all the time to kind of like create their own concept shades. Our concept shades are basically what I notice other brands like to launch every quarter. So instead of us launching something, we launch recipes for you to be able to make whatever you want. So that way your inventory always stays the same. A color's not going to get discontinued, and you have an array of opportunity to either use them standalone or intermix them.
Wow. I love it because you're creating possibilities with what you do have. And I love what you're saying, like, yeah, like how do you step out of the box and how do you like create something where you can see like, oh, this is going to work. And you just never know. Like when you create a beautiful color, like you're mixing things together, it is art. You guys are artists. You're very creative, and being able to take with what you have and create something new or create something that fits into your salon, or like just taking yourself out of that box. I think that we put ourselves in so many different contexts where we put ourselves in a box of the way that we learn something, the way that something was told to us, the way that our distributor is telling us we should do it, or however it is. It's just like taking yourself out of that, and what do you have and what possibilities and opportunities do you have within what you have right now, and then getting rid of some of those things and utilizing what you have. So then if you don't want to carry that much of an inventory, you get down nitty gritty of like, what is the necessary things that my salon really needs, rather than having endless tubes of color or products that you aren't really utilizing.
Are you ready to increase your retention and revenue and convert website traffic to clients? Then you're ready for Maya. Maya creates better business relationships by pairing the right clients with the right beauty professionals. Use promo code HPSA for your first 2 months free. Visit joinmaya.com to get started.
And I think to your point though, also, I think taking that dollar amount that you had that was sitting in that back room and applying it towards education, applying it to maybe a remodel towards a salon. Like it's mind blowing to me how many salons I walk into that would love to remodel, but they can't
afford it.
It's like, yeah, well, let me show you why. Let me open up the closet of the 500 shades that are 12 knee deep and that you're carrying based on, for whatever reason, because you were told to buy it.
Yeah. Totally. Because I think there's other people who are like, they want you to just buy it all. Like they want you to buy every color. They're going to convince you to buy all these things without really knowing, like, what are you as a salon? What are your needs? Like every salon's so different. So you can't just buy what's on the market, because you got to figure out what it is for you and what you want to do. And I love what you said about like, there's all these other things that you want to, like, you want to remodel, or you want to pay for education, and you want to do other things. You're like, well, I don't have the money. But I love what we do even in the academies. It's like, well, then let's go find where you can make that money. Where can you do it? Where can you either change something you're already doing, add something that's going to bring up those costs, things like that, where you can, not cost, but bring up that profit. Because I think at the end of the day, like I love what we talked about even before we started, of like, if you are not making a profit, then you are running a hobby. You have a hobby, not a business. And I think that it is so, like, people don't realize, like, well, I'm just not making a profit, I guess I got to raise my prices again, or I got to do this, or they get so run down by the fact that, like, I opened this salon and I'm not making a profit. And like you said, it took 10 years before you made a profit. And there's a lot of people out there who are in that same boat because they're not willing to.
It took us 14 years to make a profit. 10 years, we were completely in debt. And then it took us 4 years to turn over. Crazy. I was 40 years old when I made my first paycheck at Fuse.
Wow.
40.
See, and I hope if you're listening to this and and that's like resonating, whether you are in like, oh yeah, I'm just now starting to make profit, or you're like, yeah, I'm over here not making any profit. It is so much of being able to step back and get a community of people who are in the trenches with you, and they have been through it before, and they have been not profitable. And then they have like, this is what I implemented to get out of that, because there are a lot of ways to get creative and think differently, and to, submitting like even salon scale, and being able to like find different ways to get creative with what you're doing with your products, what you're doing with your services, what you're doing in your salon. Don't get stuck with you're like, I'm not making a profit, so maybe I should close my doors. Get yourself a community of people, or find yourself, like even being here on this podcast is going to give you some more ideas of how you could become profitable, like something like inventory. Because I love the topic that we're talking about, because we haven't had a conversation like this on the podcast before, of how you could, if you just looked at the way that you are hoarding your inventory, on how just looking at that and being more intentional with it, how you can make a profit.
We're Forest, born on the salon floor and built for and by hair and beauty professionals like you. Forest is your marketing, your reporting, your reputation management. You need one easy-to-use system that does it all. Forest, together we grow.
Yeah, I just think that profitability comes from and stems from what's sitting in the background. So I always tell people, like, if it's not, it's just like space. It's taking up space completely rent-free. Would you rent your house or a piece of property completely rent-free? That's what product does.
Yeah.
It's taking up space and it's rent-free. I cannot tell you how many people I've even spoken to about like inventory, and we'll get on this conversation about, well, I love my sales consultant. Well, they love you too, based on what I see in this closet. Like, it's crazy when you actually start to look at the numbers. It's crazy when you start to look at the numbers, like how crazy it really is.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Okay. Well, I'd love to dive in a little bit more to your salon specifically and how you've done this. Cause I know people listening, they're like, yeah, that sounds great, but like, I don't even know where to start. So when you're
Yeah.
talking about like that, now that we've opened up a whole box of a concept of like your inventory is costing you money, what do people do? How do they go from it now?
Yeah. So one of the things that we did first was, obviously when we did our conversion, that's when the wake up call happened. We had held on to so much stuff. We had tube after tube after tube. We started counting. It was boom, mind blowing, right? So we first did our conversion. When we did our conversion, we turned in all of our old inventory. We brought in all our new inventory. I had 12 stylists. Let me give you some dates here. I had 12 stylists that worked off that total conversion, which means tube for tube, ounce for ounce, right? So it's ounce for ounce for one total year before we made any purchase.
Whoa.
So
Wow.
we were in the black within 3 months of opening our new location. We were never in the black. We were never. So when I say like it took us 14 years to become profitable, we opened a second location. We did the whole entire build out and had it paid off in almost 4 years. And it was a huge build out. So that's what I'm saying. Like profitability, like we were profitable almost immediately, but we still had that overhead. We wanted to be a cash driven business. We do believe in being cash driven. We try not to use credit cards ever, except for, month to month purchases. And we pay that off every single month. It's our main goal now because we were so backwards for so long.
Yeah.
So I would say for everybody, I would challenge anybody, walk to your back room, look at your inventory and just say to yourself, okay, I have 6 tubes of this. Put some dates on those boxes, like write the dates down, revisit that closet in 1 month, see how many of those boxes moved. And then from there say, okay, I had 496 boxes and only 213 moved. Well, what are the other 250 you're doing?
Collecting dust.
They're sucking you dry. That's what they're doing. Sucking you dry. Living rent free. You know who he is. We all have dated one.
Yeah.
Loser.
Just taking up space, man.
Taking up space. And it's like, it's easy to fall back to it too. Just like a relationship. We all been there. Don't go back. Once you start moving forward, you have to say to yourself, make a strong decision to say, I cannot live like this. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to your staff, especially because your staff they get the back end. They don't get the additional education, or they don't get the new revamped location, or whatever it is. They don't get enough retail to sell on the front end. There's nothing worse when I walk into salons and they're so deprived of color brushes and bowls because there's just no money left, or they're hoarding tubes of color because the inventory is so low, or they're stashing shampoo for one customer that's coming in later. I've been there. I've seen it. I've experienced it. I've felt it. I've talked to people that have gone through it. I know I'm not the only one. So it's like, these are things that are just basic things that could definitely propel people immediately forward.
Are you still guessing what your color services are actually costing you? Guessing the cost of your services is eating into your profits. With Salon Scale, you can separate your parts from your labor and charge for every drop of color used. Stop letting your back bar drain your earnings. Click the link in the description to get 10% off of your first year or start your free trial today. Salon Scale. Profit starts with every mix.
So you're talking about like, in pricing out, like how many, like, are you talking like limiting down on what's available in certain, like instead of having like 600 different colors, it's like having a shorter amount of inventory and then different products that help expand what you can do with those 101 colors or whatever it was. Like you're talking about like being able to come down to what's the important things, like what do I absolutely need, and inviting your stylist to get more creative with using those colors, but then having the add-ins that change the tone and the undertone and the brightening, all those things. And so you're saying like get really intentional with what you do have. And I love that idea because I feel like sometimes when there's too much to choose from, like how many of you out there hate making choices and you're like, okay, here's a whole menu of 700 different things that you have to pick. What do you want to eat? And you're like, I don't know, what sounds good. And so then you kind of just end up reverting back to like the things that you're like, well, there's so much on here that I don't know. And so people can stop getting so creative because there's almost too much to choose from, rather than like, how cool would it be to have a color selection that's like limited, but what you can do with that color selection gets your creative juices going, thinking outside the box and getting to create things that are actually creatively that you can really get on board with. Like, man, you get to curate a color rather than having to be stuck like, okay, here's your tube of color. You need to be using this one thing. And I love what you're saying about just how it would affect the stylists also, the service providers and their life and the experience that they're having at your salon. Because at the end of the day, like you don't have a salon without your stylist, and them being able to stay creative and have everything that they need and stay in their zone and keep pursuing. That is such an important part of all this.
It's about everything. Yeah. It is like no one realizes it's the core to me of the problem. It is one of the biggest cores of the problem. I mean, I can remember back in the day, like I think about now being a salon owner with, the TikTok and the Instagram and all these things where, you have these influencers are telling people buy. And it's like, the reality is, and this is what I always tell people purchase people and then they purchase product. And it's proven day after day, especially with social media now. So it's like, I can make any color any influencer's making at this point. Like Cowboy Copper, we have it because we can make it, because we can add our mixed tones to make it, versus a brand's going to turn around and sell you that tube that's good for that, 6 months that's on trend. It's like, in 6 months, that trend's going to change. What are you going to do? Keep buying the new trend? It's like, no, I can make the new trend because I already have all that accessibility right at my fingertips.
Yeah. So how do you, because like people like, well, my staff doesn't know those things. Like, how am I going to get, like, I can't make those shifts, because I know a lot of people don't like change. And they're like, well, this is how I've been doing it, and I'm just going to figure it out. Like, what would you say to those people who are in their resistance right now and in their little voices listening to this being like, I don't think I can do that? What would you say to those little voices of like, how do you start to get your team on board of being like, we can make this change?
Yeah, I think resistance happens in fashion all the time, though. Yeah. So I can tell you how many times I've seen a pair of gym shoes and I'm like, those are terrible. And 6 months down the road, I'm buying them. You know what I mean? I'm like, remember I said I would never wear those. I still won't wear Crocs. But the thing is, it's like you look at like these Balenciagas, you're like, those are terrible as they're in your cart, So it's like, the thing is, I think, resistance comes with, also pushing ourselves to become more creative, because we become to be very like here, like we never expand right to left. So I think the first thing I always talk to staff about, my staff, obviously in the beginning, they were very resistant, but as long as they know that their salon owner is making a change on behalf of everybody because it's in their best interest, there is a safe place there. So I think if we can build relationships with our staff first, and then talk about why we're creating this creative change and why we're moving in this direction, and the importance of understanding the why, the how comes very secondary. Yeah. So to me, it's always like in teaching, it's the same thing. Don't tell me how to do it. Tell me why I need to do it. Yeah. Tell me why conditioning treatments are so important. Tell me why low inventory is a big deal. If they understand and hear the story, they're like, okay, now tell me how. That's all I need to know is how. So, one of the things that we do at Lonza is we're very good at supporting locations with several amounts of support, whether it's a hotline, whether we have someone come in and help you formulate, whether it's through education, whatever it is. But we just don't tap you on the rear end and say, good luck, right? We give you the why, and then we teach you the how. And it's come so easy that way. So establish rapport first, tell them the why, and then give them the how later.
Ready to transform your business and improve your salon's profitability? With Lonza's 3-in-1 technology and intermixable shades, your hair color inventory is streamlined with limitless creativity behind the chair. Click the link below to unveil the secret to salon success.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And we've talked a lot about getting their buy-in when you're growing. Like, you can't just shove an idea down their throat. You communicate with them in a way where it helps them see that this is help them be involved in the why. This is what we're trying to curate. What even ideas do you have? Or what are your thoughts on this? And invite them to be a part of the decision with you. Because again, like we said before, you don't have a salon without your team. And so they and sometimes well, I'm the salon owner, I'm going to make the decision, and they have to go along with it. That's not a way to cultivate a healthy, thriving culture in your salon. And so when you're making the decision to make a change, especially as changing the color line or, reducing your inventory, making changes, there's going to be people who resist it. And I love what you said, Leah, about tell them why, explain why, what is the benefit to the salon? What is the benefit to them? What is the benefit to the clients? What can you do? And understanding why and getting their buy-in to when they're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, now you have my ears. I want to understand how you expect us to do this, or how you expect this to happen, so then I can understand it better. When you're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to, now you only have this limited colors, and you go into it the how, it's just be like, what are you talking about? Why are we changing everything? I just got used to the way it was before. I've only been working here a couple of months or whatever that looks like. And so the way that you go about helping or changing something in your salon, helping your staff understand it matters. Take the time to talk to your staff and get them on board, get their buy-in with it, because it's a completely different when you have their whole buy-in. Even if you have the majority buy-in, like just have a conversation with them. We invite them to ask questions, invite them to have an opinion, invite them to have a concern. And when you can be like, approach those questions and concerns with calmness and be like, yeah, I get that. And that is a really good point. And this is why we're going to do this instead. Or yeah, that is, and that might be hard. And then we'll work through that together, like validating how they feel in the midst of that change and just be like, yeah, I get your concern there. That makes a lot of sense. I understand why you're concerned about that. It's such an important part of them feeling seen and heard of like, yeah, well, like this is an effect of my life too. And so I know your little voices in your head saying like, I don't know if I want to do this, but contemplate those kind of things where it doesn't have to be as hard. I know, Leah, you want to say something?
No, back to the concern thing. I was just because when you said it, it got me thinking too. I think sometimes we take concerns as complaints. And it's like,
so good.
These people are looking out for not just themselves, but also for your business.
Yeah.
So they're standing behind the chair representing, yes, them, but the reality is they're representing the name that's outside that door.
Oh man.
So it's like, I think we as salon owners, especially, we get that message, hey, and we get that pit in our stomach, like, oh, what is she going to complain about today? It's like, no, they're bringing concerns up because they care.
Yeah.
So not all concerns are complaints. Take concerns and say, you know what? They care. They care enough to come to me and say, you know what? I don't know if this is the right decision. So just talk me off a cliff right now. Just tell me why it's the right decision. Right. Wow. So it's like, once they have your buy-in, to your point, and we stop looking at concerns as complaints and we look at concerns as they care, it becomes to be a completely different feeling. It's like the feeling of excitement and fear. They're the same exact feeling, right? So it's like, let me take that fear that you have and turn it into excitement. I can make you feel exactly the same once I give you the why.
Wow. Man, that is such a good point. And I'm so glad that popped in your head because I love that is such a good point. I'm like so stunned on it because even thinking of my own life and the people in my life, it's like, yeah, people come with concerns and you think like, oh man, stop complaining. Like, can you just do what I asked you to? When realizing it's like, oh, maybe like even creating that as a culture in your salon to have an open space, how much different of an environment would you have if people were allowed to have a concern and you treated them that way? And like, hey, like you know, if anything comes up, like that's one thing I love about our culture and our staff here is if you have a concern, you say, it's literally in our code of honor. You see something, you say something. Like if you, because we all have our own different perspectives, what we're doing, we all respect each other. And if you have somebody in your salon who you don't respect their opinion and that you are very like, no, that's definitely a complainer, then maybe rethink what they're doing in your salon in the first place. Because you want to cultivate a culture of people who are, that have that care. And then you be able to, if you're not seeing care and you're only seeing complaints, one, evaluate your perception of it. And then two, evaluate, do you have the right people in your salon in the first place? Because I know that's a hard thing to hear. You're like, oh, but they're my top earners or they're the people making me the most money. And you're like, but if they're affecting your culture and everybody else isn't making enough money because they're affected by that person's influence in the culture matters so much. And it's something that we talk about constantly is who, the rotten apples can spoil the whole batch or whatever. It's like sometimes it is your top earner. Sometimes it is that person who's walking around creating a culture, complaining constantly or just drama. And there's a different thing to see in that. And so I hope as you're listening to this, I love the episodes that get really passionate and forward and like almost love punchy, because sometimes we get kind of stuck thinking like things can't change. I don't even know. I don't see how anything could be different than the way it is right now. But let me tell you, we have a whole academy of people who were willing to take the change and make those changes and are now, we just we had our destination training a couple weeks ago, and we were celebrating $1 million earners and multi-million-dollar earners and six-figure earners, and being able to celebrate those people who are willing to take the change and make a shift in their business and not being afraid of like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to jump 2 feet into it, and being able to do that and bring your staff along with you. I love these kinds of conversations because sometimes you need that different perspective. Let me pull you outside of the box that you've put yourself in by thinking small and thinking, well, my distributor told me I had to do this, or I had to buy all these colors, or this is the way the salon down the street's doing it, or this is the way I've only done it. Don't be afraid of stepping out of what you know, because in the unknown, sometimes that's where your dreams can sometimes lie, is if you step out of what you think you know or what you think is comfortable for you, because when you stay stuck in that box, it's because you're staying stuck where you feel comfortable. But on the other side of that is just so much more opportunity. So thank you so much, Leah, for just this time and just sharing your passion. I love how passionate you are about this and just the experience that you have and what you went through. And I'm so glad that 20 years later, almost 20 years celebrating January, that you're now profitable and you've overcome so much. And now you get to share it with other people and see, this is where I was, this is what I didn't know, but being willing to step outside of that. And now you're a profitable salon and you're doing incredible things and sharing that message with other people of you can have a profitable salon as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been a long journey.
No kidding. And sometimes in the failures or the things that you do wrong, you learn the most. So that's what I love. Yeah. Okay. Any last thoughts before we kind of wrap up here? I always love to ask, because sometimes people are like, oh, I had a final thought. So anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I mean, honestly, I feel like this conversation has brought up so many things for me, but I just want to, just tell everybody out there that, nobody ever said they didn't want to make more money, right? So look at what is happening. Look at the options, right? Don't just turn out and say, oh, I don't want to do it. Just remember, like, sometimes it's just taking that little bit of leap of faith is so important, because the people that take the leap of faith tend to, arise. So, to me, just take the leap of faith and just look at your inventory. It's always tell people, just look at it. Just look at it for a minute. Is it holding you back, or is it helping you? Is it helping you, or is it holding you? Man. It's got to be one or the other.
It's got to be one or the other. Man, Thank you so much, Leah. So if you want any support, or you want any, I'll give Leah's Instagram. You can follow her, along on her journey. We'll have it in the description. And we'll also have a phone number. If you want any support in your salon, you're like, yes, I want to do this, I don't want to do it alone, we can hook you up with, if you're interested in Lonza, know more about Lonza, we'll put their information in. You can always text us support. We'll get you hooked up with incredible people over there at Lonza, if that is the direction you want to go. Or if you just want us help in your salon, or you want to make big changes, you want to be a profitable salon, that is what we do. And we love to support you and get you hooked up with our community of people who can come alongside you and show you that even though it can feel scary, it doesn't have to be as scary as it can feel. So thank you so much, Leah.
Exactly.
Thank you, everybody who's listening.
It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time on the Profitable Salon Owner Podcast. Nice.
You've been listening to the Profitable Salon Owner Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a review, and check us out at ProfitableSalon.com for more episodes, content, and to help you turn your salon into the business you've always dreamt of.